Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Step Into the Pivot. We're so happy to have you here, and we're so happy to have our guest today, Tiffany Salzman. So, Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I got to spend some time with you. We were on a little retreat and got to spend some time with you. And for our listeners, Tiffany's bio is really short, but it has a lot of great words in it. The Women-Led Marketing Collective. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about that. And I know you're also a longtime Rotarian. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff that you're going to share with us today that I think will be amazing things for our listeners. So Evie, do you want to dive right in?
Hey, Tiffany, so great to see you. Welcome. And I wanted to say a couple of other keywords from your bio because I've seen you in action. We're both here in Portland, Oregon, so I have this wonderful opportunity to see how you interact with our community, particularly with leaders and executives across professions in Portland and beyond. And the word that comes up is strategist. And this organic style that you have, the ability to help people really come up with what's sitting inside of them in terms of what's the next organic step, what is in my highest good and the highest good of my company. So I've personally experienced that, absolutely love that. So you have this way of, really working with people's authenticity, with creating a safe space so that folks can be vulnerable and then really, strategic and action oriented. So I love that. And I know that you too have had some, really like epic moments of total authenticity and that you weren't always the leader of this women plus focused collective. So can you tell us about the pivot that really is behind Candor Concepts, your company? And what was the moment when you knew it was time to go for it?
Yeah. I have always been a prescriber of business can be used for a force for good. And that when there's true alignment within an organization and with the people that are working within the organization, magic can happen. So the pivot for me wasn't really about leaving the job. It was about choosing to build my dream, which is to help more people bring their brilliance into the world and help their communities and their teams shine. So while I had the title, I had the salary, I was really good at what I did. From the outside, it looked really successful. But through that work, I realized that I yearned for more. I yearned for having that additional impact on the team, the building of resourcefulness within a team to be able to support their organization and support their mission. And so that's what we're doing now. We're working with purpose-driven businesses to help them shine and positively impact their community, their teams, and grow as a unity.
That's
So
really
I
sweet.
love, yeah, I was gonna say I love that share your shine. Like I think that's really a very cool piece of what you're talking about, right? Because as leaders, and everybody knows I love to talk about leadership too, right? It's that. So tell us what that kind of means to you. And I'm sorry, Evie, you were gonna say something else. Were you gonna ask something
No,
different?
let's go here.
Okay.
Absolutely. I won't forget and it will all connect.
Okay, yeah. So can you talk a little about like as a leader, right, how that phrase really resonates, that share your shine.
So twofold. First, I have to tell you the origin story, which is this actually started from something my mother used to tell me. So my mother was a professional photographer and she knew that everyone had innate beauty and her goal was to help them see that beauty within themselves so that they could boost their confidence. So everyone has a lovely angle, right? There's always something you could do in the way you do a photograph so that someone feels really good about the vision they're bringing to the world. So from that, she did that in terms of photography. And what I've realized over the years is that we all as human beings have innate talents that we commonly take for granted. We don't necessarily bring into the light of day. It's just how we work. And a lot of the times, like I used to and sometimes still think is like, oh, everyone knows this. right? Everyone does this. This is just normal. In reality, it's not. So what I love is helping leaders and helping teams identify that unique brilliance that they have within them. Maybe it's that extra idea they've had, but they haven't necessarily brought it to the group yet. Or they have a unique way of leading and it's great for their team, but it's not necessarily what the best practice books have been saying, right? So finding that authenticity in terms of how they lead and sharing their brilliance unapologetically in a nice and candid way with their team so that they can move forward as a unit.
That was amazing. Yeah, totally agree. And we think that people don't want to hear our stories. And Eva and I have discovered this, which is kind of why we started Step Into the Pivot, right? So that we could share these stories that people feel important.
Yeah, you used the word candid, Tiffany. And what I was thinking about, and with the, also the tenor of our show, can you tell us about why you named the company Candor Concepts? And what does candor mean to you? What does being candid mean to you? How do you experience it? How do you define it? And maybe a candid share about, something behind the scenes that's about you in the context of everything we're talking about.
So candor was purposely chosen because in life, especially as we added social media, we tend to walk around the world as though we have a persona that's out for the public versus who we are innately. And so I think businesses fall prey to that. I think individuals fall prey to that. I've been there. I used to share everything on Facebook Live when it first came out, right? Share everything about my journey and my kids. And then I realized that it started becoming more about the persona versus the individual. So with everything that we do now, and the reason the other reason I go with candor is because there have been a few books that I've read that have been really instrumental. One of them is Radical Candor, and it's about having those harder conversations and being honest with kindness so that you're setting people up for success. And so around the time, shortly after that book came out and Brene Brown's books and everything, I was like, authenticity and how you do business is what it's all about. It aligns with everything from Rotary about service above self, business being used as a force for good. And so it is the middle, the initial gem that I would say, or the point of brilliance that we rally around at Candor Concepts.
Teresa, I'd love to ask Tiffany to share something with our audience that she shared with me, which is so fantastic. It's so simple, and I think it goes really well here. And that is, in light of everything you're talking about, and given that you focus on marketing, so presenting messages, can you tell us your wrapping story, the wrapping teaching? How, the presentation of the authentic share can still have different expressions depending on context. I'll let you take it away. So how you can be like, this is what Candor Concepts do. They teach people these really cool metaphors that they can apply. So go for it.
Okay. So when we're working with clients, especially women business leaders, a lot of the times there's this tug of war about how do I share this, or I don't want to come off too strong, or if I come off this way, it feels a little pushy or selfish, right? There's all of these like bazillion things that we think are part of the messaging, and we have to get it just right and have that one point. And what I like to share with people is just as when you are going to an evening party, you might say one thing as a open conversation versus the first thing in the morning at work, right? The message, the core essence of what you're trying to share is what we like to refer to as the gift, right? So what is that brilliance, that shine that you're trying to bring to the world? What is the gift that you're bringing? And then the wrapping is how you present that. So let's say you have a small business and you are trying to share this gift. You're trying to help people do a certain thing, and you have a way that they could do it easier or more simplified or with ease. So that might be the one message. But if you take that message to a business meeting, how you present that message is going to change. How you present that gift is going to change. Just like if you had a gift, let's say you bought a beautiful glass vase, You would wrap it in certain wrapping paper to go to a wedding, different than maybe a birthday party or different than going to your girlfriend's house for wine, even if it was the same gift. So the point is to not think that you have to change the gift or change the message or change you as who you authentically are. Just put on a different wrapping paper that's more appropriate for the occasion.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, a very good way to put that, right? Because I think sometimes, particularly as women, we get stuck in that, right? That, and you said it, right? That people are going to think we're too pushy or too, I don't know, there's tons of other words we could use there besides pushy, but that they're going to think that way. But we want to be our authentic selves. And I honestly think that most people who are really true and great people want to hear what we have to say, but sometimes we do have to wrap that a little bit differently. So I do love that context that you put that in there. So yeah, I think that's an amazing takeaway for our listeners for sure, is that, and we do have to temper that at times, right? I'll use the word temper. We do sometimes have to like just be cautious, or, some of my really good girlfriends, sometimes I have one who always asks me for advice. And sometimes I'm like, do you really want to know? Like it might hurt your feelings a little bit, but you're asking me. And so, but it's a fair thing. It's a very fair thing, Tiffany. I love that. Evie, do you have anything to add there?
I was just thinking about this morning, I had an opportunity to work with some internal notes, and the internal notes were something that if you have insider understanding of what we're talking about, they make perfect sense. But to put that in front of the client, there's a meeting coming up later today, it would send so many confusing messages. The essence is exactly the same, but some intention and attention needs to be given to the information so that when it's received later in the day by the client who doesn't have the internal understandings and all the mechanisms of, so that can land, so that it can be easier for them. So essence exactly the same, right? Packaging completely different. And as a matter of fact, that wrapping paper is a gift in and of itself. So that's what I was thinking, that like that additional, thought that goes into how you present the information is an experience in and of itself, right?
Well, and I was even going to say that sometimes too, right, putting something in writing is different than talking in person, right? Even if it is just on the phone versus on a Zoom call or truly in person, right? You have to figure out how that's going to be received, maybe is the answer, right? And that's part of it, right? Like you need to, sometimes being that in person, they can see the care, that what you're really saying is comes from a place of care versus you're just putting it in email to, get it off your plate or whatever. So that can happen in business, that can happen, at a personal level, any of those kind of things.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about, you must have, as a Rotarian, because we mentioned that, you must have seen a lot of different expressions of messages from yourself to yourself, because you served in Rotary since age, what was it? Very early,
21. Yeah, I
21.
started at 21.
And now you are.
I will be the district governor for 2829 for Rotary District 5100.
That's amazing. Honestly, tell us a little about that. How has that service, right, shaped your identity a little bit, right? Because since 21, that's pretty respectable there. Most people, I think, don't join Rotary till they're a little bit older. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's exactly what I'm trying to change with this new role. So I got my start with Rotary really young. My mom was one of the first Rotarians in our local Rotary Club. And so I grew up around Rotarians, and the magic of being able to be of service and have those leaders see things in me that I had not yet seen in myself was immense. They, presented me with, we have a program called Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, and it's a week-long leadership retreat. And I was one of the youngest individuals to go to that at just 18 after graduating high school, and learned so much about myself, learned so much about how to communicate with others, long-term planning and strategy. And it just made such a big impact in my life that after college, when I was able to, because we didn't have a Rotaract college group where I was, I joined the Rotary Club. And from there, I was president at 25. So again, they saw in me and provided me opportunities, mentorship, open doors. And so I was able to serve at one club, and then I served at another club just a few years ago. And I've had opportunities at the district. And my goal now is to help other young professionals seize the opportunity that Rotary can provide in the world, not just in service, but within themselves as well, in the learning, the training, and the community that you get as a Rotarian.
Well, and I also think you said it that, they saw something in you maybe you didn't see in yourself. And sometimes that's important that somebody else recognizes that, to give you that confidence, to give you that push, to give you that whatever. So is that what you hope to accomplish with some of the other younger people that you hope to bring into Rotary? Because I think it's a great message.
I do. We actually have a group of a few younger working professionals that we're trying to see how else we can help support that next generation of service, right? Because as our society changes and as we're more digitized and we're less of the kind of community centers, we as humans need opportunities to connect, to serve, to grow, to broaden our own horizons. And I think Rotary can be a really impactful way to do that. So yes, providing opportunities for the next generation to get the same opportunities that I had and then some is what it's all about.
Yeah, awesome. So I'd like to maybe, Evie, were you going to say something else? I was going to switch gears just a little
Totally,
bit here.
same.
You're a wife, you're a mom, you're a community leader, you're a business owner. How do you prioritize yourself? Because that's one of the things I think all of us struggle with. So we ask this a lot of our guests, and I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that.
Well, to be honest, it has been a bumpy ride over the years. I tend to get into ruts at certain times, especially when business is strong or there's a challenge, and I fool myself into thinking I can just push through. I've had the luxury of having fellow women leaders like Evie here notice things and remind me of little insights. And so it was such a treat this last year to join Evie on one of her Courageous Being retreats and really reconnect with myself, turn off work. It was darn near impossible to actually get work done there because of the time zone and everything else. It was such a treat. So it's still one of those balancing acts that I have to rebalance. What I'm doing now, though, is asking myself, is this something that I'm doing because I feel like I should? Or is this something I'm doing because it really helps propel what I'm trying to bring to the world and help support myself, my family, or my community? So it has to kind of align with that four-way test of, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Does it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerns? But instead of putting me not in the all concerns, I'm now bringing myself back into the mix.
Let's go over the questions again, because those are so cool. So maybe slow down just so that we can then maybe after each one, hear your own take on that. So
sure. So these are not mine.
Yeah,
these
totally.
are what I learned early on. This is the Rotary Four-Way Test. So the first thing is, of all of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Hence, full alignment with candor. Because if you're fooling yourself or you're fooling others, you're not actually benefiting the world. Is it fair to all concerned? Right? So fair means different things at different times. Ideally, everyone benefits, but that kind of goes into the next question. But in terms of fair, it will look different based upon the context, right? And so we've seen a lot of this recently. Fair needs to be that you have everyone's best interest in mind and you're working towards a solution or an answer that brings that to life.
Okay, that's fair. That's really something that we should think about. Okay, the next one.
The third is it beneficial to all concerned? So even though something could be fair, it might not be as helpful, right? So the goal is to be honest, fair, and helpful, kind of along the same lines as a rising tide raises all boats. So keeping that in mind so that it's I think Evie says this a lot, of the best and highest good for everyone involved. Same kind of concept.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's really important that we keep that in mind, right? It has to be kind of what's best. Okay. And number 4.
You're going to have to cut this because I just had a complete brain spasm here.
That's okay. We can cut this piece out. So Tiffany, it's all good. So
it's the truth is the fair, beneficial. Will it build goodwill and better friendships is the last one. Because we are all about community. As humans, we need community. It's how we survive. It's how we are created. And so we need it to help everyone in the community.
And your community is so important. I mean, I think that's what you get from being a Rotarian too, right? It is a community. But we all have communities, and we need to make sure that that's really part of the conversation, right? Does it make us better? Does it make the community better? So yeah, I love those. I think that was a really great
bunch
recap.
of notes. Sorry to talk over you. I think it's just we're having such a good conversation here. I took a bunch of notes because I was thinking about burnout, and I was thinking about fatigue and exhaustion and anywhere on that spectrum. And so this is a really good, set of prompts for women who I may be reflecting back on your case, Tiffany, but like, I'm not feeling well. I could use a break. And then we start thinking like, but I can't because my kids, and then the other roles, and then what about this? And what about this? And it's like, is it true that this will really all fall apart if you step away for whatever, an afternoon, a weekend, a week? Is it true? Be honest. And also, is it true that you can't just keep going at the pace that you're going at? And then, can you leave and set it or take that break? And again, even if it's just a weekend afternoon for yourself for recharging, is it in everyone's best interest that you do that? And can you do it and set it up in a way that's fair? So like maybe don't, consider other people's, schedules. And then is it beneficial and helpful? And here's where I find also that people who take a break and learn how to take good care of themselves, they'll be surprised by some of the outcomes, right? You leave and you take yourself out of that equation where you feel like they can't do it without you. Well, it turns out that then that creates some space for additional experiences to happen. I don't know, Tiffany, if that was your experience when we did the retreat, but, there must have been some, some helpfulness to the group that you left behind, the family that...
It is. There's always surprises, and the way they would work through a challenge is going to be different than the way that I would work through a challenge, but that's fine, right? We all have our own different ways. We all have our own ways in which we operate. What I found, though, is building these upon each other. Each time you do it, it gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier. So with your team, right, you'll see new strengths that you might not have noticed before when you come back. You'll see new skill sets that were probably there, but they weren't what you were focused on because you were focused on something else. And so when you come back, you have a fresh perspective. We saw the same thing when I took my husband and my kids on a month-long tour around the U.S. in our travel trailer. And oh my goodness, that was amazing to show them the awesomeness of the majesty of the landscapes and our national parks, and give them that sense of wonder and that they could do these things, right? You don't have to have a huge caravan. You don't have to have a huge trip. You can just get in the car and go and be in awe of the world around you. And so each of those times has helped us bring better systems to the team. We've seen people grow in different ways. And then it's always a joy to be able to share those experiences with the ones that you're with.
Yeah, really great message. Okay, so we always end our podcast with, so how is this pivot a step forward? And you've talked about a lot of things today. So a lot of great things. So if you were going to leave our listeners with one thing, how is this pivot a step forward? So pick something that you think is really important to you and talk about that for a minute.
So the pivot, and I'm going to say, is focusing on the long game. And that's with this new role with Rotary. I've found a way to blend and align my work life, my community life, and my personal life with what I'm doing now with Rotary. And I didn't go for this role as a like, this is the thing I want to do, a check off a box. It was more seen as, for me, an opportunity to play the long game, to help ensure that everyone can benefit from the programs and support that Rotary offers the world, and to help invite a new generation. So this is more about legacy and empowering others. And that's the pivot now, is aligning all of my different experiences into a channel that can make a true impact.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to wrap up this conversation. So, Tiffany, yeah, thank you so much for being here. Evie, I'm sure you have some last thoughts and then we can close out. But yeah, I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful way to share your shine, Tiffany, with us and be the force for good. And I feel really inspired in many different ways. And I also see this like continuation of the approach that you were talking about at the beginning when you said that you had this, inner impulse to create Candor Concept and be the force for good. And now this is coming through the new and expanded role in Rotary. And it's just the long game, I think, is, it's never ending. And that's the whole point. So thank you for encouraging us to lean into that. And yeah,
Yeah, because I think
share
sometimes
your
we're
shine.
yeah, and I think sometimes we're too short-sighted. So
Yeah.
it's a really great message to definitely have that long game mindset.
Love it.
I'm stealing your words there, but that's definitely true. So thank you again, Tiffany, for being here today. I got a lot of tidbits. I agree with Evie. I'm very inspired, and I hope to our listeners you are inspired as well. That's We're done with another episode for this week. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you again in a couple weeks. And until then, if you have a pivot, step into it.